The business is the Keystone Rendering Plant, also known as 49ers, in Fredericksburg, Pennsylvania. The rendering plant sits on about 114 acres, and it's just next to an area that has recently been given LERTA designation, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to extend that same LERTA designation onto this property. It's and basically what our plans are to buy the rendering plant and operate the rendering plant, but we want to develop the 114 or so acres that are associated with the rendering plant into a couple of things. One is we want to make a processing plant there and to expand our capacity. The processing plant, we haven't designed it yet, but it's probably going to be somewhere in the 180,000 square foot range, and it's going to employ at full capacity about 1,000 people. We also want to build on the property a hatchery, and the hatchery will, supply chicks to our ever-growing grow-out family of farmers within the area, and in turn supply chickens to the poultry plant. As you're probably aware, we're and unrelated to this, but as you're probably aware, we're ready to break ground on a new further processing plant, also in Fredericksburg at the corner where Esther's is on Route 22. Are you guys aware of that? Mm-hmm. We have about 160,000 square foot plant that we've already designed. We've already invested well over $1.5 million into design fees, and we're shovel ready, if you will. We're ready to break ground on that and start on that further processing plant, which is a little bit different than a processing plant. We understand, going back to the rendering plant, we understand that there are some zoning issues that we need to work through, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to get the proper zoning to be able to build what I've just described on that site. Tim and I have a meeting scheduled with the township on February 6th to talk to the township. We've already spoken with the school board. An initial reaction from the school board was positive, but we still have some things to knock off before we can go back to the school board for their final approval of this LERTA. I think that kind of summarizes what we're hoping to do, and I'd love to talk.
In technical terms, Dan said it's adjacent to another area that was previously granted by all three governing bodies. Our view was simply, in terms of how it gets done, it would be a change to the area covered by that LERTA. It would be a map change, essentially. The terms would be the same. We're not asking for anything different than the adjacent owners receive. So the provisions would be the same, simply that the designation of the area would be expanded to cover this property. So we're not asking for different arrangements or anything other than include us in that area, have this property covered. And obviously when that occurs, the existing rendering plant, such as it is, pays tax at the current level. It would only be new construction, the new facilities that are discussed in this handout that would benefit from the LERTA. So when Farmers Pride owns a rendering plant, it would continue to pay property tax at that rate. And whether or not that plant is expanded is a whole other thing that
we have no plans.
Sure. There's no current plan to change it. Just run it the way it is.
Susan, did you have anything to add?
I started working with Dan and Farmers Pride a few months back, or several months back. Got the Governor's Action Team involved because there were some requirements that were kind of tedious for the company. Governor's Action Team saw, and this is the first project that they're going to do on the Esther property, creating quality jobs for the community and adding investment in. So they saw it as a really viable project and wanted to offer, and they put an offer letter out on the table to Farmers Pride, and we're able to help them with.
We accepted their offer and filled out their applications, and yeah, we're very thankful for their support.
Yeah, so I was a little confused coming in today. I was thinking it was that project that they were going to be asking for the LERTA on, and I was surprised at that because it was, further along. This project would be on the south side of the street,
Right.
purchasing the Keystone Protein company. I guess, Dan, often when people present, they'll have what maybe the current taxes are now, and then what the, moving forward, what that building and the future taxes are going to be, so that the commissioners can kind of look at that and say, well, this is what you're asking for, even if it's an estimated amount. So I don't know, Tim, do you have those along, Dan?
Go ahead.
We did. The school board asked the same thing. Part of our concern was we're estimating construction costs pretty, it's a pretty rough estimate. There's a lot of construction going on in this county that involves warehousing, which are very large buildings with a whole lot less inside. The difficulty of estimating these projects is that the building is smaller, but the equipping of it is quite expensive. The interior is very specialized. So, just the current project that Dan described at what we call the Esther's site at the restaurant, the estimates of cost are still not done, and they've spent $1.5 million designing, and they're still not sure of the cost. And it's probably in the range of a little less than this processing plant amount. So we're not exactly sure yet, but we can certainly give you numbers based on what we're showing you here. By the time it's built, it's probably going to cost this much.
Yeah, easy. Yeah, we're thinking these are light estimates on what it's going to cost to build this plant.
Susan,
So the
did you-
building would be roughly 160,000 square feet, so you're taxed on your building and your land, which they're currently taxed now at.
It's agricultural farmland. I mean, it's a cash crop land, substantially different.
Yeah, so that'd be something to look at, have those figures in so we can look at it a little bit better.
Is that zoned agricultural?
Yes,
You'll have to get the zoning changed.
yes.
When you get the zoning changed, the value of the land itself immediately increases.
Right.
Mhm.
We understand.
And I'm not sure how that fits into the LERTA, but my thinking would be that it would be that the tax rate of the actual value of the land at the time that it's ready for the project.
Sure.
That leads to, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Just not necessarily about, we often get warehouse type operations that are being considered, and this is a permanent investment. And it's-
Yeah, I mean, one of the huge differences between those big box warehouses is that, this type of construction is built for 40 years, 50 years. I'm sure you guys are aware that, a lot of this, big box distribution center construction is much less time frame. They really don't expect them to last that long. We've been a contributing member to the township and the county for, Scott Seckler, who can't be here today. He's working and traveling, selling in Florida. Bought the business in 1984. So 30 years, we're coming up on 30 years in Fredericksburg.
Commitment, yeah.
Yeah, and the commitment is to stay in Fredericksburg and Lebanon County.
And the hatchery operation that you're talking about here, is that being done now somewhere in Lebanon County? That
No,
function?
no, right now, and this would be incremental to where we're currently hatching eggs. We have a hatchery in Lancaster, Longenecker Hatchery, and we also have a hatchery in Belleville up near State College, Pennsylvania.
If I may.
Sure.
Dan, could you describe the employment at the plant that's currently designed and you're about to break ground on, the estimate?
Yeah, that's going to add, well, currently, we employ 1,200 people approximately at our site at 154 West Main Street. The plant that we're building on the Esther's, we call it the Esther's Project, on Route 22 between 78 and 22 next to Esther's Restaurant at full capacity will employ 400 people, give or take. And then, yeah, this new project that we're talking
This is in
about
addition to all of
is
that.
another 1,000.
Would you talk about rate rates of pay?
Yeah, it's, as you probably can imagine, without making any assumptions, to run a plant of this sophistication requires a lot of specific expertise. Our maintenance staff, we employ over 50 maintenance employees to run our current plant. We would need about 50 maintenance employees to run this new plant. Supervision, human resources, and then a lot of manufacturing jobs. The average wage rate is going to be somewhere between $12 and $15 an hour average. But a lot of those specific people are going to be much higher.
But some will be much lower too, I would assume.
I wouldn't say much lower. No.
Well, if
I mean,
the
there's a starting
average-
wage. There's a
if you-
start.
What is the starting wage?
Starting wage is going to be around $10 an hour.
Maybe a little bit about benefits.
Oh, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. In today's healthcare arena, everybody's motivation, it seems, is to reduce benefits and put more onus on the employees, more cost on the employees. In April of this year, we rolled out a completely opposite plan, and what our plan is for all of our associates and their families, 0 deductible, 0 copay, 0 coinsurance, zeros across the board. We have a tiered approach where there's a tier 1 level of provider, tier 2 level of provider, and so on. Actually, not and so on. There's tier 1, tier 2, and non-participating. For tier 1, that 0 deductible, 0 copay, 0 coinsurance applies. And the only hospitals around here that don't fall into that tier 1 are the Reading Hospital Network and Lancaster General. Everybody else is a tier 1 provider, so 0, 0, 0.
Is there access to water and sewer on the property that you are currently looking to purchase? Or did you purchase it already? I'm confused on that.
We haven't purchased it already. We have a signed letter of intent to purchase
That's why
it.
we're here, because
Yes.
we haven't purchased it yet.
And is there water and sewer access on that property?
There's a wastewater treatment plant on the site. So there is water. There's water treatment facilities on the site. We are going to need more. We're going to need more capacity, and we're working through those details as we speak.
Okay, that's very interesting. Do you know the quantity of water you would be using per day?
We don't have that dialed down specifically, but poultry processing is heavily water intensive, so we would have a significant water usage.
The site currently has SRBC water withdrawal permits, and we're just at the due diligence stage, so we're still learning about some of what the rendering plant has access to. But clearly, a processing plant would require additional supply, and so we'd have to go through the Susquehanna River Basin Commission process to withdraw more groundwater.
So you would be withdrawing groundwater and not a client of the Lebanon Water Authority?
More than likely, since that's what's already occurring there. Now, again, neither of us is an engineer, and we haven't done the engineering yet, but since they have withdrawal permits, we would certainly look at the feasibility, I would think, of continuing
Absolutely.
those.
Yep.
Okay, so you'd be putting your own wells on site. And then the next question,
Or simply withdrawing more water from the wells that are there, just having a permit that allows you to take more. But that's what we need to
you
look
have
at
the
the engineering.
capacity, is there enough water
I
in that
can't
well?
answer that, that's what our engineers need to look at.
Okay. So you don't know how much water you'll be using, and you're not sure of the source?
Well, I'd say we're fairly sure that it's going to be on-site water unless something would change.
Well, the reason I ask is because Bethel's a water deficit area, and with all the development we're seeing around the area, I want to make sure that you guys check all that out before you break ground and buy the property, because
Absolutely.
I would hate to see you get caught
Right.
in a negative situation, especially since you're local people. That would be hard to see that happen. But the next part you partially answered, I think, and that is, will you be discharging to local streams, and will that water be processed first?
It'll definitely be processed first, and distributed, you know, back to the,
Drinking water standards or whatever,
Yeah.
or not
The-
quite drinking
The
water.
treatment plant there is an MPDS permit. We'll have to take over that permit, and whatever we do would have to be DEP approved.
I didn't hear the news today, but I had some people come up to me at lunch. Is that you? Is that related to you? That's different?
That was yesterday's news.
Oh, sorry.
And it was big news. Perdue, as you know, or may or may not know, bought BC Natural Coleman, the brand Coleman, about 2 years ago, and operated BC Natural, which used to be owned by Penfield in Fredericksburg for, you know, the last couple of years. We got a phone call from Congressman Charlie Dent yesterday informing us that they gave notice, 60 days notice, that they're closing that plant. 690 people are losing their jobs.
And that's a different plant, because I'm sure
Oh,
there are a
totally,
lot of
yeah.
people who don't live in Fredericksburg that will be confused by that and not understand the request. And-
not
No, we're
us.
Bell and Evans, they're Perdue.
Okay, I just thought
That's
we
the
should maybe
distinction.
clear the air on that. Okay,
No relation.
no relation, okay.
Although we're happy with building plants and not closing them.
Okay,
We're investing, they're divesting.
their,
right?
their plant wouldn't do you any good, huh?
No.
You'd have to retrofit it
Maybe
and
they can
whatever.
have some of their water, Joellen.
Pardon?
Maybe they can have some of their
Oh,
water.
some of their water, there you go. I don't know how much they use a day, but yeah, that's a
Well, it-
possibility.
You know, as we said, poultry processing is very water intensive.
Yes.
And
Are you looking at the BC Natural Chicken employees as a possible draw for your own workforce?
without a doubt, absolutely.
You're talking about somewhere around 400 jobs at this particular facility?
400 jobs at the Esther's facility, and that's, we're gonna be breaking ground in the next several months. It's a 14-month construction process, and when we're up and running at full capacity, we're gonna have 400 additional jobs at that site.
Okay. Now, if I could just, there was a little bit of confusion with the reporter who covered your appearance at the Northern Lebanon School Board meeting, and I just want to get the location straight as far as what piece of property you're looking for the LERTA today. Where,
The address is 568 Chestnut Hill Road, Fredericksburg, Pennsylvania,
that is on what side of the Route 20?
South side.
south side.
So that's across the street essentially from where Esther's Diner is located.
It's not across the street, but it's on the other side.
on
of
that
22.
side.
It's on the other side,
It's
so
not directly
it's
across
not,
the
it's not the Esther's property itself. That's where the confusion came in. Okay, thank you.
And since the restaurant is so loved by people, to be clear, it hasn't been closed, it's not going away.
In fact, you put in new carpeting
We just
and
invested-
tables. Yes, I go there every Tuesday morning for Rotary.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we plan to continue to invest in the Esther's restaurant. I think it's a great local landmark, and for people like the Rotary, and we're going to continue to support and keep Esther's restaurant functioning, fully functioning.
It would be very helpful if we had a map along with those taxes, so we can see the layout to share with the local press and things. What you did on paper is wonderful, but those visuals are very helpful to be able to share with people so they understand, because everybody has the same questions. There's no numbers on streets out there that they know exactly what's what, so it would be very helpful to have those maps.
And frankly, when we visited with the North Lebanon School Board, we had an old drawing of the current configuration of rendering plant and the property. Its quality wasn't that great because it was picked up at the courthouse and passed through a title agent and then emailed, and it showed the property, which is a rectangle along the road with some buildings. It really didn't allow you to place it in a wider geography, and they didn't find it that helpful, honestly, so we need to get a better drawing, and we don't have one yet.
Okay.
Timing for the rendering plant and that project, is that also maybe a 14-month timeline there, or is that a longer?
It's going to be a longer timeline. The first step is to get this LERTA approved. Then acquire the rendering plant, and then design a processing plant. The design phase could take 6 months to a year, and then once we have it designed, we have the demand. Once we have it designed processing plant will, you know, get financing in place, break ground, and then it's probably a 14-month construction process.
And no doubt running concurrently will be zoning and subdivision approvals.
Obviously, you're growing. Does your business plan have you getting into wider markets, or is it just a demand that's up? Can you share anything about that?
You know, just, you know, generally speaking, we're doing very well. And we have some key customers who are growing at double-digit growth rates. Whole Foods, to name one, very big, important customer to us. You know, we have a great business model right now that's working, and you know, we're growing to keep up with demand of our customers.
Stated differently, the plant that we're showing you these ideas on has to be built if we're going to keep up with customers, so it's got to go somewhere.
Right.
This is our best choice. We prefer this, but they need to keep up with customer demand. They need to build a third plant, essentially.
Yeah, and to Tim's point, you know, we want to, and as evidence being in Fredericksburg since 1984, we want to stay here. You know, that's our first choice. We have a couple other options. This LERTA would certainly help us make this.
Susan, do you happen to know if the water at the plant, not theirs, the other plant that's closing, is that on a well water or the public water? Do you know?
I'm not sure, Joel.
Okay,
I think it's a combination.
combination.
I do. I know they have wells on site.
By the fact that your starting wage is 10, and you know the salaries, the wages will go up from there. So, and the long-term investment certainly does make it more attractive.
Again, the other point here is certainly on a processing line, there are going to be folks who are doing work that's entry-level pay. On the other hand, Bell & Evans has some unique processing equipment. Their slow induction method of dispatching the poultry and their methods of chilling are not typical.
Mm-hmm.
It requires people who have the skill sets to maintain it. If you're familiar with the food world, the U.S. government is imposing all kinds of food safety rules, anti-terrorism rules, and other things, which will require that they have people in-house to monitor all that and understand it and plan for it. So while there are a large number of employees who are at entry level, there are a whole lot of others that are going to have another skill set, one that sadly for them is transferable to somebody else in the food industry. So those are better jobs.
May I ask, at your current plant, what is the starting, the lowest wage that you pay?
You know, off the top of my head, I don't have the number in my head. It's $9-ish, you know, approximately. And then there's a 30-day review and a 60-day review, 90-day review that get them up very quickly.
Plus the benefits.
Oh, plus the benefits.
Well, your
The
benefits,
healthcare
obviously,
benefits
are
significant,
excellent.
yeah. You're not, your folks are not organized,
No.
and that's a good way to keep them not organized, that benefit package. Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of benefits that we don't talk about all the time. We have a company subsidized cafeteria and provide our associates with 3 hot meals a day.
Wow.
Full staff. We have
Probably some chicken in some of those.
I wouldn't doubt that. That's better than the county office.
No, our
Get 3 meals a
cafeteria
day.
is excellent. It's a nice place to work. A lot of people.
Don't you also offer some primary care support for your employees on site?
Daycare, you mean?
No, primary care.
Health
Oh,
care.
oh, absolutely, yeah. We, Dr. Nielsen,
There you go.
we have Dr. Nielsen working out of an office that we set up on site where he, you know, provides, you know, as you said, primary care. He's a local doctor, works out of Annville, and he does. Yeah, I met with him this morning actually.
That's unique.
There's
Yeah.
a pretty close relationship between Bell & Evans and the hospital here.
Oh,
Bell & Evans raises money for the hospital here. The hospital has this cooperative venture with Bell & Evans to bring health care to the facility. all of this has led to this unique health plan where they're experimenting with if we provide more primary care, people will be healthier and premiums will hopefully go down. We'll find out, you know, that's the theory.
Yeah. Where that we have an annual charity golf event, we give 100% of the proceeds to the Good Samaritan Hospital. We have over the first 5 years of the golf tournament, and we've given the local hospital here $375,000 in the first 5 years of our charity golf event.
Well, it sounds like you're a good community citizen, so that's important.
Without relating it to the agreements, we really need to get a number of things done and get to a closing in 30 to 60 days from now. We have some substantial challenges, including the commissioner asked about water and sewer. There are you can imagine if you're running a rendering plant, which is rendering parts of chickens that aren't consumed, there are a lot of environmental things there. So there's a lot of permitting we have to work through transferring in a brief period of time. We're hard at work on that, but after
Well,
you
we're not
consider
giving
it-
you a yes or no today.
Correct, and we didn't expect that.
Okay.
You're in a position here today asking for a LERTA on property that you don't own. Is that typical, Susan, or?
Yeah, they want to calculate their costs to make sure it's a feasible project for them.
The level of employment and someone else comes along, so from my viewpoint, again, that raises red flags.
So is there a condition that we can insert that would say that this is a non-transferable LERTA, that it is only for this particular business? Is that possible, Susan?
We would have to look into that legally to
Okay.
see if that's,
That would address Commissioner Ames' concern if we could do something like
Well,
that.
I would have to think about this a bit, but I think if you look at the state statute and if you look at the prior alerters, at least the one that I've examined that we're suggesting that we attach ourselves to use a phrase, in that case, Bell and Evans would not have the benefit of it until they applied for a building permit, until they had a design and came in and were ready to apply, and the clock would begin to run then. I'm not sure if that ordinance is typical of what's been approved, or that resolution typical of what's been approved by the governments involved in the past here, then I'm not sure any of them were tied to a particular applicant, so to speak.
Right.
It's tied to the land and whoever shows up with the building permit, that there's a window in that,
There is an
approval.
expiration.
Correct, and so long as you present a building permit before the expiration date, you can avail yourself of it. I would need to look, it's possible that the expiration date could be moved up or revoked as well.
That makes sense because it's, you know, the purpose, I suppose, is to entice people to develop, so I can understand that.
but if the philosophy is that moving forward, you want to look, you know, at manufacturing companies, wages, et cetera, to just start putting land in Lebanon County in LERTAs in hopes that someone's going to come there, you'll have to examine if that's your philosophy.
Well, and that's, again, part of what I'm struggling with.
Susan, I don't know if this is appropriate at this time, but I think that if we could work with you to draw up some guidelines for the future, that would certainly be in order. Perhaps if Commissioner Ames or Commissioner Phillips or I or whoever has some suggestions, we could funnel them through you, and you could help put something together so that we could hand that to any prospective. And it's been my experience that we can't impose it on people who've already presented, but for future. So,
I'd be glad to help you with that.
all right, thank you.